This is Sandeman Vintage Port 2000 Vow Vintage. Now, vintage port is the pinnacle for port. It's what you really want to seek out when you want a great port. It's what wine lovers and collectors all flock to. And vintage port is a wine that basically you buy it and you put it in your cellar and you forget about it for years. It usually requires many, many years of maturation in your wine cellar to be ready to drink. It's aged 2 years in barrel, and then it's bottled. And it throws a sediment, so you must decant it. I've got my funnel and screen here, so I'm going to be able to filter out any of the sediment that comes off of it. Now this is a unique wine. Sandeman makes a standard vintage port, and they make this Vow Vintage, which is a different blend than their vintage port. What they've done is they've taken all their various lots of wines. Now, they have their own estate vineyard, which is the Quinta do Vow, which is where the vow comes from in here. And the grapes come from that vineyard, as well as vineyards from surrounding areas that they have contracted to. And they make the wine, and they go through all of the vats, all of the lots, and they select out the lots that they feel are most forward, less hard, maybe less tightly wound, and they blend them together for this Vow Vintage. So what you end up with is a true vintage port, but a vintage port that doesn't take 20 years to mature. It's one that, here we are in 2010, and this is going to be ready to drink, unlike many other 2000 vintage ports. 2000 was a great vintage, by the way, and many of those wines are still maturing. So that's one of the real advantages to this particular wine. Don't drink your port out of little tiny glasses. Use a nice big red wine glass, because you can really enjoy all the aromas and really just take in all the flavors much better. Now, this one has a really, it's a kind of a full throttle nose on this wine. Really ripe berry notes. You get some of the notes of the alcohol. Of course, port is a fortified wine, so they actually add brandy to it while it's fermenting. That interrupts the fermentation and leaves that residual sugar in the wine. It makes it sweet and rich. So you get some of that. You get some real nice earthiness, some nuttiness. Very complex. That's one of the things that makes vintage port so intriguing and wonderful. Let's taste it. Okay. This is a really nice, rich, mouth-filling port. Yeah, it's sweet, which is good, but it's beautifully balanced. You've got a nice note of acidity, keeping everything lively. And of course, what we expected is what we got in terms of the tannins. The tannins are very, very soft and approachable. I get some real nice layers of berry fruit, cherry fruit, some creamy notes, some nuttiness, some earthy, minerally notes. Very complex, very full-bodied, very big and bold. They pair this up with Stilton cheese, and you can pair it up with desserts too, but sometimes it's great to just drink it on its own. Enjoy.